A little background, I started at Yale in applied physics as an admin assistant. And like they talked about, admin assistants get handed a lot of stuff to do. So I helped people, the faculty there, digitize their overhead transparencies for PowerPoint. So that was the beginning of my digitization career. And I also supported the LMS, which was homegrown at Yale at that time. And that got me thinking about getting a master's in instructional technology, which I did in order to get the job that I got next. And then I did not finish my degree. I had a lot of small children. I didn't want to do it. So I then started working in instructional technology, which was part of ITS at the time. And I did a lot of, LMS, LMS support. They then went from the homegrown to Sakai, but I started digitizing video clips, more images, PDFs, et cetera, and as faculty started to gather these collections for teaching and research, they needed a better way to keep track of them. So in 2007, we stood up an instance of Portfolio Extensis, which worked really well for us for a while. They then went to one point where they didn't have the desktop client anymore, and it still runs on Flash right now. So I liked it. I mean, I liked it because it hit a lot of the things that we needed to hit, but right now getting it running is kind of like getting a Model T Ford to run. You know what I mean? You don't need a Flash backend. Yale actually just went to an enterprise version of NetX, but only for their Office of Public Affairs and some of the galleries, some of the art galleries. So what else do you need to know about me? I guess that in 2008 we started WordPress, a multi-site instance of WordPress, and ITG, the Instructional Technology Group at that time, we were sort of the catch-all for whatever people wanted to do in technology and digitally that wasn't provided if you think of service, I don't know if you guys have pyramid services, there's the basic services, and then there were the high-end services, and so we sort of hit everybody in the middle. So we started Commons, and it ran research sites and professional development sites, as well as, group sites, events, that kind of thing. Anybody with a net ID could get one. We did a lot of course sites on that. We found that it was an on-prem box. Our dev, test, and production did not share the same database. It was interesting. And then we slowly updated. So eventually Commons got pretty unwieldy, and we decided to break it off into 3 different branches. So we broke it off into CoursePress, which was time-bound course stuff, still on-prem, still multi-site. And then we went to EduBlogs, WPCampus. For $8,000, we moved off all of our professional labs, research, events. It works really well for us there. And then we started wanting to do something we wanted to call academic press, which is more high-touch, single installs. And so that's what I mainly work with now. CoursePress went the way of the Canvas group, and EduBlogs is run by ITS, of which I am not a part anymore. So this is what this talk's about, and this is the big one for me. This is the place where I don't want to get stuck anymore, where I don't hand something off to a faculty member that can't handle it or understand where it is. So we're looking at the, somewhat tech savvy, if not graduate student connected faculty member. And I'd also, now that I work in the library, which is a new move for me since last August. It's very funny, I move around Yale a lot, but my job doesn't really change, just technology and the people above me do. So I've been here a long time doing the same thing. So the idea, though, I get to work with students now too. And the library touches everybody at Yale. Okay, so let's see, where am I at? So this is Handsome Dan 18 and his handler, Kevin Walker. And when I talk about care, these are the items I'm talking about. File management, file types, file names, those things have kind of changed. Those change, so do our storage solutions. And so we're moving away from an enterprise Extensis and NetX for my group and for faculty and student needs is too expensive, and we can't have a seat on OPA's box. So I'm super nervous. I haven't spoken in a long time. So when I talk about feeding, they're so damn cute, bulldogs. Good grief. Metadata, there's schema and custom metadata. So Dublin Core, it hits a lot of it. VRC Core might hit some, but I have a lot of faculty member who have custom metadata. I also found that it's easier to concatenate several fields at once if you need to, but harder to parse them apart. And so we introduce more fields than possibly is necessary. And I've also found that I can talk about this a little bit more, that IPTC fields will hit most of what faculty and scholars need to do. So IPTC fields are a standard schema that if you were to add them to a digital image, they travel with the image wherever it goes. And please raise your hand, ask any questions. It's not that big of a group. I'm happy to slow down, speed up. If I'm not making sense, please let me know. So the things that are important is how easy is it for the faculty to add the asset with the metadata. And I do documentation, although, back in the day, we would write documentation on top of documentation because we thought Yale, as its special snowflake, needed its special documentation. So what I try to get away from is, like, WordPress has great documentation, right? And so do a lot of the damn tools I'm going to talk about. All I really do is I customize almost a one-sheet Google sheet for the Google Doc for the faculty member so they can figure out what I'm talking about, and I link out to the help doc. If I never have to take a screenshot of an application again and then replace it later, that would be my ideal. So then I'm going to talk a little bit about WordPress. Themes and plugins I've used. I will tell you that Yale is also a Drupal shop and an Omeka S shop. Omeka S is run in the library, and Drupal is run at ITS. And those both have their uses and are not. Wouldn't say WordPress replaces them. It's just one in our arsenal of things that we can use. As you know, Drupal is not for the faint of heart. So we're going to talk about, like, what these things cost, and yeah, that slide. I think I just like that slide because I found a bank. That was a bulldog. Okay, so currently, most of the things that I'm dealing with for faculty specifically, because of their want to keep things intellectual property, let's say, I use a storage at Yale. We have a file storage there. That's our cost per year, per terabyte. It's not a web server. I'm going to show you an example, but what can be common is a faculty member shows up with 40 data DVDs, and they have TIFF files, right? And so I'll talk about this process. So I use my share, I throw those TIFF files up. Back in the day, I might have changed all the file names, right? So they weren't disk whatever. I found over the years that that's a problem because they can't then find the originals. Even though I was really cautious and I usually put the original file name in the keywords, it's just better if you leave them the same and you use your metadata for the finding tool. I also use folder structures on that server. Yale is going to go through AWS S3, and they're going to connect it to the Yale NetID. So everybody at the institution with the Yale NetID is going to have some space on that. And then Amazon does have a cloud drive, which is fairly inexpensive at 5 gigabytes, which isn't a ton of space, right? But unlimited for $60 a year. And then Dropbox, you can go up to 2 terabytes for $120. And Dropbox does have, they still have their public folder. They changed how you could get your web link to it, but there's help documentation out there too. And Yale is a box.com user as well, which gives every every person at the institution 50 gigabytes, and that is a web server too. So we have some storage options. I still find the file server storage the most handy, and you create a group, you can throw their grad students in and out of the share, and that works well for us. So, whoops. So I kid you not, that bulldog's name is Dam, D-A-M. So Google Images. It's crazy. What's going to come up on my Amazon though next week? Really, I want to know. So these are the most important features I found for a DAM, particularly this one, the import and export features. We want to get it out, particularly for our faculty members, into an easily readable, like tab delimited or CSV. That's something they understand. They can open up Excel, they can make changes there, and hopefully you can import those changes back in pretty easily, but these are really important. We liked Extensis because it allowed multiple editors on a single catalog, and most of these DAMs that I'm going to show you today do not have that, right? Although you can use Bridge that way. If you point, and I'll talk about that, you can point Bridge at a server and you can set their little cache file that draws those thumbnails over and over again, so you don't have to wait on your local machine for 30,000 images, thumbnails to do, and they will see those fields, because you're writing them to the images that are on that server. So, and it's really important that it can embed any of the metadata that you add to it. So those are my top things that I need from a DAM. All right. So here's Bridge. It does read EXIF and ITPC fields. The XMP is extendable. I will tell you that I have not cracked that nut yet. I find Adobe Help to be a bit dense, and I haven't found anybody who's written a script that works well with that. But there are, PS scripts out there. There's one in particular that I use, DYI input metadata. I had somebody that I took off of Extensis that used Lightroom, but so it had IPTC fields already in it, right? But we needed to add some data. That script actually allowed me to throw a CSV at the server, and it ingested my metadata, the few fields that I really wanted to have, added to up on that server. So I can point you to how you put that cache build on your server if you want. And the next slide. So this is fairly new, Airtable. I mean, seriously, can you? All right, I'm way too happy about my images. You guys are like, okay, so Airtable is pretty cool. I have a faculty member who shares his images widely. He was in Extensis portfolio. I exported out of Extensis into a CSV file, and you can actually create an Airtable database with the CSV. It's free up to a point, and it allows for images as attachments, and they actually have a way in which you can create a gallery on your table and then add each one of those images to a cell. So he can now add other people to go up and look through Airtable. In fact, wait, I was going to show you what Airtable looked like, actually. Might as well do that. So here's Airtable. I'm logged in, and this is the thing that I created. I haven't put the images in yet, but this is the thing I created with my CSV. So it's just a data table. It looks a lot like a spreadsheet. And then in this image column is where I will attach them. So he really needed a shareable database because he's got excavators all over the country and the world who actually update this information with him. So Airtable works pretty well. And so these are the DAMs, right? I will get to WordPress, I promise. So let's go back to, I get back? Where's my back button? One more time. That's so funny. Do we have any technologists in the office? Yeah, right.
So it's this.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's that one. But not that one. Well, it's not that one.
That's not this one.
Yeah, the other one is the one that I'm doing with my phone. But you know what? We'll just use this one. How about that? It's not a big deal. All right. Now I'm looking at Tropy, which is fairly new. It comes from the Rosencrantz, I'm not going to get the name right. It comes from the Roy Rosenzweig Center for History and Media at George Mason. Tropy uses SQLite. It's local. Uses a SQLite database on your local machine, and they're looking to do an import. So right now you can't import any, it's not easy to import an already created catalog. Let's just say that. It's pretty easy to start from scratch, and you actually can extend the fields. You can add a bunch of fields. They have, Tropy has a template that allows you to update and put custom fields in. Their format for import is going to be JSON LD. So that's, yet again, for right now, for what I need to be able to hand off to a faculty member to understand it, Tropy is good if we're starting from scratch. If we're starting and saying what images are on your machine and what ways do you want to think about cataloging them. So you can pull them all in and you can actually select a bunch and add metadata. In fact, I can show you Tropy real quick. Where's my... So, I have to escape. There.
Click exit right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's one right there. I just did that, but I was trying to get back to that, right? So, escape. There we go. Sheesh kabibble. You think I haven't done this for 22 years. Give me such a crick in the neck. I want to show you Tropy real quick. So here's Tropy. I think they might come up with an online version at some point, which might be interesting, but they have a generic, they have Dublin Core, that over there is the things, and you can set up your own metadata schema, and you just drag and drop images into it, and the schema will show up there. You can create different columns to look at. I mean, the issue, like I said now, is its export is JSON LD, and while that's easily readable, it's not necessarily easy for a faculty member. So let's come back down here, 1%, and just double check. So there's Tropy. And then other ideas that I've had for DAM, right? Can you actually use WordPress for DAM? Is it a good idea? Yes and no. It's certainly not a good storage idea for your large files, but you could technically use their media library and a couple of extra plugins that allowed people to add to the fields, and then you can export that as a CSV. I mean, and we've also had good luck with Google Sheets and Excel for some faculty member. It is not easy to bulk add images into a spreadsheet. You can do it, but you're probably doing it. The faculty probably isn't. Okay, so next, at the Yale landscape of WordPress, I talked about these. CoursePress is going the way of something called Canvas Press, and we are using Pantheon.io, which I have nothing but good things to say about. It's not cheap, though, once you go live, but Yale does have a contract, which allows me to deploy. The thing I like about Pantheon.io is the 3 branches and the fact that I can deploy a dev site for free, and I can try out all kinds of things. And unlike my on-prem box that I was used to, I can actually be in an SFTP mode and use WordPress like it's meant to be used. Hey, I want to try that plugin. Okay, now I can turn it back off again. And then you push up through the branches. I probably have 25 sites on there now. I'm obviously a product placement person, but if out in the wild, particularly for faculty members that are only at Yale for a short time, I send them to Reclaim and we work from there. I wish Yale was a domain of one's own university, and maybe we will get there one day, but it's not yet. But Reclaim is awesome. I highly recommend it. But any other hosting service will do. Okay. So brief word about preservation. We're looking at archiving sites. The web archiving group in the Yale University Library is using Archive It. We've done that before. So they crawl through, get some seeds from it. But in general, we can get to a point where we can flatten the site. It's no longer being updated. It's not running anything really complicated. I can flatten the site into flat HTML. We stick it on our S3 server, and then that's fine, right? At Yale, they tend not to throw anything away. Hence, I think that's Handsome Dan 12. He sits in the gym, totally stuffed. We're looking at what does that mean, long-term preservation? I mean, the library uses Preservica. There's a thing in place talking about how to preserve stuff. I mean, they don't throw anything away. They think somebody's going to be president one day from there or something. So, and we make sure we embed the data into those image files so that it always travels with it. That's another way we talk about preservation. A brief word about maintenance. I do SLA lights, so I make sure that the faculty member knows this is probably a 4-year, I'm around to support you, but after that point, we can't say whether Pantheon will still be around or whether we'll be using it. I've dropped that down to 2 years before. We negotiate with ITS who does the WordPress button pushing on Pantheon, and I make sure that the faculty member knows that we're planning for archiving at some point, that it's not going to be there in perpetuity. So this is one of my favorite sites. It's live. You can go check it out. But I'm now going to show you. Do I have time? How am I doing? Am I doing okay?
Yep.
Okay. So this was one of my favorite sites. It's actually several years old, and he hasn't added to it, but it was at a point in time in our nation's history, right before Obama was elected, when the Wall Street protests were happening. And so he's a faculty member. His name's Matt Jacobson. He's one of my favorite faculty members. He takes his own pictures and uses Lightroom to manage them. And he uses Lightroom to manage them because he does a lot of black and white and cropping from these originals. And Lightroom does a pretty good job. Lightroom comes free at Yale with our Creative Suite. But it's not cheap. But he puts in IPTC fields for us because that's really all we need from him. Where is it? Who is it? What is your descriptor? That kind of thing. And only he can do that. And he does that. And then he places them on a server for me to look at. We archive the originals off his machine into a storage so that when he does print, he can go back to it. Unfortunately, sometimes he's wanted to print iPhone pictures. That was really a pain in the neck. But that's something to think about too. It's like to think about the DAM or even the WordPress site as the faculty member or the student's finding tool, so that they can get back to that original, so they can use it for print publication. It's not fun taking a 72 DPI and getting it ready to go to a book. So he used the 2014 theme. We only did CSS modifications. I will tell you that back in the day in ITG, we had developers, we did custom work, we did all that kind of stuff. I don't. I don't write code. I can read code and I can break code. I'm pretty good at that. And I understand it. I understand, but I stick with it out of the box as much as I can. I don't update plugins. I don't do that, mainly because I don't want the headache of future maintenance of those things anymore. Inherit custom code. Who's gotten that? That is not fun. So, and then I used NextGen Gallery. NextGen was big at one point. I think it's still pretty good. For this particular site, it worked really well. It scraped all that IPTC metadata into the title, caption, and tags. They have a great lightbox view and a gallery view. I have unlimited galleries and albums. I use those tags to create dynamic. So while this was being built, if he took another picture that had Obama in it and it was tagged Obama and he threw it up into NextGen, it just put it into that dynamic gallery for Obama. So let's see. Gosh, what if I showed you? I just can't do the side-to-side thing. Here we go. Oh, and you know what? It's so funny. He called it Historian's Eye. And then he called it Our Better History. So talk about a URL change, right? And then he called it, oh, why isn't it coming up? Ah, shoot. Okay, I have it here. Wait, I can do that. So then he called it The Crossroads of Hope and Despair. And I was like, oh, I really liked Our Better History, but that's okay. I'm not the historian on this. So this is his front door. It runs on Campus Press, right? But he has several projects. But here's Crossroads of Hope and Despair. You can see it's 2014. And these galleries over on the right are just WordPress categories. But on the Obama, and this is running, Jetpack's sort of show on this page. That's a widget over there. And on the Obama page, it's just it's just gallery Obama tag equals Obama, and it pulls up all the Obama things here. So that's pretty cool. He also runs a lot of audio on here, and we did 3-play media transcriptions, which is good. I have 15 minutes. Let's go. Okay, so back to this guy and present. All right. So I can go. My things will be up there. I paid for the NextGen Pro, $99. This is the next one. This is a new one for me. Accent Archive. I have the person in the drama who trains those Yale drama people how to use accents, has a whole MP3 library. We used MP3 Tagger, which allowed her to have custom fields, and we exported it out into CSV. I did a Menolite child theme, and then I'm using a group of plugins. The main one that I'm using is the AFC, so the Advanced Custom Field plugins. And they have an additional plugin called AFC Theme Code, which was easy for me to set the site up for her. So in other words, I use that to display those themes on the front. And I'll show you a picture of that. The Pro version is $25 for lifetime. But this is the code that it gave me. And so because I'm on Pantheon, I can actually, if I want to be brave, edit my child theme directly. This is just the content PHP file. So they gave me that code, right? And all I did was copy and paste it in there so that it shows up here. And I have if statements that something's blank, we don't show it. This is called a Wage Surfer plugin. She wanted them to be able to see that. And then we just sort things out with categories. And this is how I got everything in there. I use WP all import. I can import a CSV directly into those all custom advanced custom field things, and it does an auto creation of a post. It allows to put in the categories that come from the CSV, and there's an import template that you set up once. So now I've written her help documentation. She does all the tagging in MP3. She exports a CSV file, and then she brings the CSV file into a WAL import, and she picks my template. All those things get ingested. She takes the MP3 files and uploads them to the media gallery. So in my template, I can write a little shortcode that says, hey, pull in that audio file and put it in my post content. And then Wave Surfer takes over. So pretty much I'm now, like, I can step out of the way. She's got a bunch of students tagging these things for her. So I'm also running an Ivory Search as a plugin, and what I like about it is it searches in the custom fields. So I can pick those fields that I want them to search in. I told you about the Wave Surfer. We need students to be able to log in and become subscribers, so I'm using this login redirect because they never really need to see the back end, and we don't really want them to. So in other words, they can log in with our, their Yale authentication. It'll add them automatically. We're using SAML. It add them automatically as authors to this, or subscribers to the site. But rather than having them land in the dashboard and go, what the heck am I looking at? We have them land back in the front door. She also wants mapping so that you can pick a section of the world and then deliver those. I'm using Maplik. It was $40. And then I'm testing Post Table Pro, which will allow me to take all those posts and put them in a sortable table. So hopefully for the end users, it'll be pretty, but basically, I didn't want to be the person uploading hundreds of media files. I wanted her to, and I think I've solved the problem for her. There's we did a similar thing with an institutional collection at the Beinecke, the Gimbel Dickens collection. The Beinecke actually digitized it all, but we have a faculty member who's basically giving a narrative and context around. She's a Dickens scholar, and so she wanted to take, and Beinecke doesn't have any of this on a website. Yale is moving to IIIF. WordPress doesn't have IIIF stuff in it yet, but particularly with institutional things, I almost always put a custom field in that links them back out to the source. And the only thing we bring in here are thumbnail and web brevity images. So in other words, I don't want to recreate all that. And I have 2 minutes. And then this is the gentleman I was talking about who brought me 40 DVD discs. Which were, I will tell you, very organized. Batch 1, Disk 1, Disk 1, Batch 1, Constitutional Revolution, or some country name. Those were the things. Those are all the things that we put, I put a grad student on it. We put into keywords, and we put on copyright into the IPTC fields, and we did it all in Bridge. We could have done it in Tropy, but I'm very comfortable with Bridge. Bridge is free, by the way. You don't have to have Creative Suite to use Bridge anymore. And then I used a plugin called Media Library Assistant. Now, Media Library Assistant has a lot. Well, let's talk about Bridge. So basically, all I did was recreate the folder structure back up on my server, right? I didn't change the file name at all. I opened them with Bridge by going to the server. I added the IPTC words to the TIFFs, and then I batch created JPEGs for the website because I don't want to deal with TIFFs on my WordPress instance, right? So that IPTC data, metadata, came from the TIFFs to the JPEGs. I didn't have to do that twice. So that's how I used Bridge for that. And then I used Media Library Assistant. It's got some complicated shortcode. It allows you to fix a lot of templates. You fix it once, and you don't have to do it again. So you're probably on the hook for getting that set up for the faculty member. But this is the part that I was pretty excited about. I could create posts and categorize them, but I could also just add my shortcode. So I can put any number of keywords into that. Because basically, when you bring the IPTC fields over, one of the mapping things is attachment categories, right? And so that's what this is then saying, hey, show me everything from disk 1, right? And it also you can use one of the IPTC fields for captions for him. So now he can look at the site and sort of see where his things are, because that's one of the bigger problems, is they don't know what they have after a time, particularly data disks, right? It's a little difficult. They do also have a template which will create a term list that's sortable and clickable. So in other words, I could say, give me the template with the term list, and then he can just go down the words and click on something, and it will show those images there. So I think we talked a little bit about this, right? If I use Airtable as the DAM, I would export it out to a CSV file. I think I said they only export to JSON-LD. That was a lie. They do export to CSV. They won't import in a CSV. So, and then I would go through, much like I did with Accent Archive, and thank you. You can provide feedback. I am on Twitter, although I'm a bit of a lurker, and I am on WP Campus Slack, and I am happy. There probably isn't time for questions, but maybe 5.
We do. We got about 5 minutes.
Okay, so I'm happy to answer questions. Please leave questions there too. You could, I'm old school, email me if you want, and I'm happy to answer there too. The more we share the knowledge, the better we get. And, you know, poke holes in it or whatever you need to do. If you have any questions, let me know. Did I glaze you over? I really thought the Bulldogs were going to keep you going. Yes.
Do you have any experience setting up assessments based around these, or with faculty wanting to use these for assessments?
You mean testing? Like testing students, basically? I have more, no. And mainly because we're an LMS, that's our workhorse, so they might test on Canvas. I have set up many student resource or practice sites, right? So one that I did a little while back, I used a flashcard plugin, and it was for Japanese kanji. Right, and it allowed students to go through, and it was based on cookies, right? So I was on there, and I could say, oh, I didn't get that one, and it would recircle it back through the deck for me. But they didn't use metadata, but they were image files and FLV files. That's how long ago that was. So, anybody else? Seriously, if you want to, I can give you like a kind of more step-by-step via email, or I'll share Google Docs with you. I'm happy to do that too. Do not need to keep anything to myself.
No other questions? Great. Well, have a good lunch.